the Big Ten and SEC are going to ruin college football as we know it. That was ESPN's Michael Wilbon on Pardon the Interruption. I think it was on Wednesday. I'm not sure if it was Wednesday or Tuesday, but he was reacting to some of the stuff that the SEC and the Big Ten have been kind of pushing forward, and he can smell this. I think a lot of people can about that. The control right now in college sports is with those two leagues. I mean, I think you can think on your hand in college football specifically. There might be maybe Clemson, Florida State, Notre Dame. Does anyone in the new Big 12 matter at all? All of the schools that matter are in the Big Ten and the SEC. I mean, it's just all there is to it. And Michael was reacting to the notion that the SEC and the Big Ten would get three automatic qualifiers into a new 14-team college football playoff, which I'll talk about in the future here. But it's just kind of like, I want to talk about this for a little bit because, first of all, I love Michael Wilbon. I think he's been great for reporting and entertainment and what I do, and has been good at it for a really long time. And I enjoy Pardon the Interruption when I have the ability to watch it. But and he's a unabashed, Big Ten honk, loves Northwestern. God bless him. But these two leagues clearly control collegiate athletics at a big level. What they choose to care about, that's what they control. And now, particularly, I don't think that Texas and Oklahoma was really a death blow to all of the other leagues. USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon going to the Big Ten. That really did end everything, because if you still had a viable Pac-12, we wouldn't, I don't think we'd be as much in this position. I mean, the Big 12 would be weak, but maybe you would have the ACC and the Big 12 combined and have a legitimate, league in that way. I did leave out Texas Christian, but I just don't, they play for a national championship. Was hard to believe, even looking back on it now, that they'll be back in that position anytime soon. But with an expanded playoff, they could. Ruining college football as we know it. I mean, look, sometimes Tony and Michael Wilbon, Tony and Mike sometimes sound like really old guys. And they're screaming at clouds and get off my lawn. But this has just been a slow boil. The frog in the water, the boiling water. That's what this has been for a while. There's at every step of the way, the NCAA, which is the schools, by the way, they have had their head in the sand, and now it's too late. All of this stuff, it's too late. And we're trying to correct everything. Basically, we're almost 4 seasons into this, but we're basically talking about trying to correct everything in a 4-year period that's been going on for 40 years minimum. I mean, the NCAA mattered before the landmark ruling of Georgia, Oklahoma, and Penn State versus the NCAA, which disallowed the NCAA from restricting schools from only having 3 televised games a season. From that point forward, the NCAA has essentially made a false step or the wrong move every single way. And as a person who's very familiar with academia, through 4 years of college, 2 years of grad school, 9 years of being on the board of trustees, interacting with a lot of people in these worlds, the previous notion that this was about, quote, student athletes in the Big Ten and the SEC was a stretch. That it was really something that was going on in collegiate football was ridiculous after a while. I mean, it's a great notion that education was the reason why, but guys are going to these places so that they can go on to play professionally or get into coaching or whatever. I mean, there's different types of education. It doesn't all have to be in the classroom. But I don't think that Michael is wrong necessarily, but I also think that this has been building for a long time. I think that the most powerful person, one of the 10 most powerful people in sports is Greg Sankey. And when I'm talking about sports, I mean Roger Goodell, the chair of ESPN, Bob Iger, who is really over at Disney. Roger Goodell is probably the most powerful person in sports, the commissioner of the NFL. And then you can take it from there and put Adam Silver wherever you want. But Greg Sankey is in the top 10 for sure. And his relationship with ESPN and Disney creating the SEC network, which essentially led to the situation we're at with the ACC, his pulling in Texas and Oklahoma, that has vastly dismantled what we knew of college football. And perhaps that's Mike's complaint. But I think you have to balance everything with, do we really want what we always had? And my answer to that is no. I don't want that. I don't want it to be that LSU and USC are not meeting for a national championship in 2003, or that Georgia didn't have an opportunity in 2002, 2005, 2007 to play for the national championship, 2012 in a playoff we don't have to go from one extreme to another. And I don't think we're going, we are kind of going full Billy Joel here. We're getting close to, I don't know why I go to extremes. Why are we going to a 14-team playoff? We don't even have a 12 yet. I know why. I'll get to that in another video. But, excuse me. I don't know why I've got this cold. I know why I've got that cold too. But, I don't want it to be that the Big Ten champion and the SEC champion never play one another. And in the past, that was the case. I don't want it to be that name, image, and likeness goes away. The transfer portal can be adjusted. That's the NCAA's bylaws. That has nothing to do with the legal system, the Supreme Court, none of that stuff. So all of these things could have been sort of massaged along the way. And these institutions are scared to death that the athletes will become employees. I have a news flash for people. I was an employee while I was a student athlete where I was at. It went towards financial aid, but I was an employee because they took taxes out, etc. I have another news flash. There are tons of students at these schools who are employees of the institutions. Tons. I mean, tons means 2,000. It's probably multiple, plural tons, right? So that's what tons means. But I mean, fear has been the biggest driver of almost all of this. And unfortunately in life, that's what happens often, is we make decisions based on fear. And I think, are the SEC and the Big Ten going to eventually break away? Yes, they will. I mean, I don't know that. No one's ever said that to me that I know behind the scenes of the SEC, behind the scenes at Georgia or around the SEC. I know a lot of people. I mean, I'm getting to the point where I know a lot of people at different places, and going to school undergrad not at Georgia has given me the ability to know a lot of people, and that are, in different schools or different institutions that are higher up now, because we're all almost 50. But there's not a lot of fear about the future necessarily, because the SEC and the Big Ten are in control. There is full-blown panic and fear at Clemson, I can tell you. And it's pretty clear, although I don't know anybody at Florida State, it's pretty clear Florida State is in a full-blown panic. How that affects North Carolina or Virginia, because they're kind of the prettiest two girls at the dance over there, amazingly, in Virginia's case, I don't know. But I don't think the Big Ten and the SEC are, quote, ruining it. His direct quote was, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to ruin college football as we knew it. Well, they've already done that. So that's over. I did want to spotlight one thing real quick here. Our buddies at Red Zone have got this exclusive UGA MASCOT bobblehead. You cannot get this anywhere else. And in addition, there's an extremely limited amount of orders that they can take, okay? Because once they run out, they're out. They don't have any in stock right now. You order it today, and you'll get a little bit later in the spring. So order that today from our friends Scott and Mindy over at Red Zone on Clayton Street. Are you going down there? So I know Scott and Mindy would love for Georgia to host Texas, Alabama, and LSU all at home in one season. That's what the new college football will be. That's not ruining it. It's not that. The amount of complaining, as a person who's run a message board for close to a quarter century, the amount of complaining for non-big home games in Athens is not just old man screaming at the sky. It's really been not great for a long time. And there's only so many times you can schedule Clemson at the beginning of the season or playing Colorado, a team no one cares about. They want to play big games in Athens. It's hard to do that when Auburn's not been great this century. Well, certainly the last 15 years. It's hard to do that when Georgia Tech is not great and you play them 2 days after Thanksgiving. It's hard to do that when Florida is never going to be played in Athens, okay? So your three rivals, you're not playing huge games against them. It's very rare. I mean, Georgia-Auburn has not been a top 10 matchup in Athens maybe since 2005. I'm not sure if that's true. And so there you go. Georgia-Bama has not been top 10 in Athens. I don't think it wasn't in 2015. In 2008, probably. I'm pretty sure. And then 2003, it was not because, Alabama in both those cases in 03 and in 15 were not ranked in the top 10. So Georgia was. So you're not getting those huge games. And people want Georgia LSU. They want Georgia Texas. They want Georgia Alabama. And they're okay with the losses. I mean, they're not okay with it. But, this is entertainment. That needs to be said. This is entertainment. It's sports. It's completely serious, but it is entertainment. And, I can assure you when, Dave Chappelle, Jeff Foxworthy, Ricky Gervais, when those guys, they're in comedy, but they're completely serious about what they do. It is entertainment, though. So people want to be entertained. And the thing that they love the most, the people that go to Georgia games, probably in their life, there's not three things they love more than Georgia. Probably. And now, kids will lump into one thing. Church will lump into one thing. Some people don't go to church. Some people don't go to synagogue or what, that some people don't have kids or they're, 20 and they don't have kids, So they love the Dogs and they want to see Georgia play big games. They want big moments. They want all those things. And that's what the new world of college football is going to give you. There's always going to be regret about the past and, how, quote, simple it was or, all this nostalgic stuff. But, I mean, and I loved my childhood. It was awesome. But there are a lot of things way better today in my life than existed when I was a child. We can watch, for instance, sticking to Georgia specifically, you're not just watching 3 football games a year. You literally can watch them every single time they take the court. My daughter and I last night, we watched Georgia play Clemson in softball. Okay? That was never possible when I was a child. First of all, they didn't have softball at Georgia or Clemson. Secondly, they sure were not broadcasting these sorts of things. Okay? And then you have, the travesty of the past season was that Georgia and Florida State did not get into the college football playoff. One of them specifically deserved to be in there, Georgia. The other one got their ass beat in Miami. Those two teams would have had 2 other teams with them complaining had we had the old system, which would have been Michigan playing, I guess, Washington for a national championship. We got that anyway. I'm not sure those were the best 2 teams in the country, but they deserved to be there. They earned it. So the past is not always as great as it seems. I can assure you of that. We've made a lot of progress, and I wouldn't be able to do this for a living if we lived in the past either. But ruining college football as we know it, the SEC and the Big Ten, I don't know if those guys view it as them ruining it. I think they think they're trying to get it better. It's up to each person to decide what that is. But my suspicion is there's going to be more good than bad.